we'll get started.
Yeah.
All right. So before we go into the content for today, just a quick recap of what we were talking about last week. So when it comes to attribution, we were talking about touch points, right? So before making a purchase, the customer interacts with the company via many touch points. These touch points could be anything like clicking on a banner ad on Google, ads on social media pages, talking to company representatives, or whatever. Okay. And the process of attribution is the process of determining the proportion of revenue each touch point is responsible for. Okay. And why do we do this? Because this will help us identify which marketing channels are effective and where should we invest our marketing budget. Okay. Now, then we talked about what makes B2B attribution different from B2C attribution, and then we said that in B2B the lead cycle is a bit long, so we need omni-channel attribution, so we need online interaction data as well as offline interaction data. Okay. And we also talked about the siloed nature of the data in the B2B scenario. And then we talked about different types of attribution modeling techniques, and we also mentioned that the off-the-shelf MAS or the marketing automation software is not designed for revenue attribution, and also the conventional models such as the first touch or last touch are not suitable for the B2B scenario, simply because the sales cycle is long and complex. So we said typically the B2B sales cycle spans a period of few months or a little over a year, right? So the conventional attribution modeling technique is not suitable in the B2B scenario. So that is where we said we need a multi-touch attribution model, and this multi-touch attribution model is of 4 types. So linear, U-shaped, time decay, and custom attribution model. So we did talk briefly about linear, U-shaped, and time decay model, and custom attribution model is something that we'll be focusing on in today's session. Okay. So custom attribution model, just to give you an overview, it is most sophisticated. It is the most sophisticated, but it also provides you the most realistic view. Okay, and this is primarily based on mining patterns from the customer interaction data and identifying trends in behavior. Okay, so basically, if you see, this attribution model is based on data analysis and experience. Okay? And the 2 challenging aspects of building a custom attribution model are the data collection part, where we need to integrate the offline data as well with the online data and build this unified lead profile, and then rolling up individual activities to the account level. So we said, right, the same company might have sent different representatives. There may be different users of the same company interacting with you, and you need to link all those interactions to that particular company or to that particular account. So that is what we say, roll up individual activities to account level. So at the end of this B2B attribution modeling exercise, what solution will be built will look something like this. So it will be called as a revenue intelligence solution, integrating online marketing automation software data and the offline CRM data, and then they can possibly have something like this revenue waterfall, and to what extent each ad campaign has an impact or influence on the revenue. And this possible solution architecture we saw, then different types of data sources, and then we also saw something like a unified lead profile. So different interactions, different touch points, but then everything is related to one single account or one single prospective customer company. So that is what we call as the unified lead profile. So until here, we covered it in the last week's session. Now, in today's session, I'll talk about 4 specific approaches that we were able to identify for attribution modeling. Now, these approaches are suitable for a B2B scenario as well as for a B2C scenario. Okay, and the reason here is that these approaches are largely based on certain ML techniques or heuristic techniques. They are very flexible in nature, and they do account for the intricacies and the complications that the B2B attribution modeling presents. Okay. So the first approach, if you see, it is a regression model. Okay. And it also considers the competitors' impact as well as offline campaign data. So we were talking about integration of online and offline data, right? So the first approach is something that will consider the impact of offline data as well. The second approach is a Markov chain model. Third approach is an XGBoost or extreme gradient boosting model. And the reason for choosing this model is that it works well with unbalanced data. I'll be going into more detail on what exactly is unbalanced data and so on, but that is the USP of the third approach. Fourth approach deals with game theory models. Oh, okay, so any questions here until now before we go into the individual approaches? Okay, let me go to the next slide. So the first approach, if you see, it is a multi-touch attribution approach considering competitors as well as offline campaign data. Okay, and of course, so in each of the slides, I have included references for the white papers as well. So maybe at the end of the session, I can share this slide deck with you. So if anyone is interested, you can feel free to go through these papers. So since this is a regression-based approach, in regression you typically have a set of independent variables and then you have one dependent variable, right? Now this is a very similar regression approach. The only thing being, this is an approach which involves multiple models. So that is why you have 3 different dependent variables and then there is one set of independent variables. Okay. So when I say dependent variables, that is what the model tries to estimate or predict. Okay. So the dependent variables considered by this model are first website visited in the purchase session, the set of other websites visited, and then the conversion website. So conversion website is the one where the customer actually makes the purchase. Okay. But before making that purchase, he could have possibly visited a lot of other websites as well. Okay. So what are those websites which he could have visited? So that is the second dependent variable, that is a set of other websites visited. And then what is the first website visited in the purchase session? So that these are the set of dependent variables which the model deals with. Independent variables are the information stock gathered through online channel. So stock is nothing but any browsing that the customer does, right? So you go to Google, you search for a particular keyword, and then you browse through certain links and so on. Okay, so all of that clickstream data, all of that search data, that is what they call as information stock. Okay, website specific experience is nothing but before making that final purchase or in the process of making that final purchase, the customer could have visited multiple websites, and in each website he could have typically followed that sales funnel that we have. Going to the website, looking at the product page, and then looking at the reviews, making comparisons, clicking on add to cart, making a payment, and so on. Right. So this is what we call as a website specific experience. So all details corresponding to website level browsing data for all prospective websites. So that is what is called as website specific experience, and these variables related to this are grouped under the second point over here. And then the third point under the independent variables that we have is nothing but the website spending on online and offline ad channels. So this is where the company spends online ad, as you know, it is typically a social media ad or a Google AdWords or a banner ad or another website or something like that, right? Offline ad channel is nothing but your advertisements in print media and radio, television, and so on. So all your spending on both online as well as offline ad channels are consolidated under the third category of independent variables. So like I said, a little more detail on each of the independent variables. So information from online channels is nothing but the search, display or referral, whatever banner ad that you clicked, or if there is any email campaign that you have run. So in email campaigns, you have variables like the click-through rate, open rate, and so on. Okay, so that is the third point here. Direct typing of URL is nothing but without going to Google or without clicking on any other ad, you just type the URL of the prospective website directly in your browser and go to that website. So this is the first set of independent variables. And then website specific experience, like I told you, whether it has visited and purchased from the website in the last session, number of pages browsed, amount of money spent, and so on. and they do apply some sort of a feature engineering on this data. So this is depreciated over time, weighted by time difference using a monthly decay rate. So this is these are details mentioned in that paper that I was talking about over here, and this is a feature engineering technique which they have used possibly to improve the accuracy of the model. And then online and offline spending. So like I said, the specialty of this approach number one is two things, right? So one is consideration of the competitors' data. The second is consideration of the offline data. So competitors' data, we said all the websites visited in the purchase session. So that they're also being considered as variables. So that is the impact of competitors. And then the offline spending data, what they have done is they have obtained it from an external data source. So there is this third-party database called Kantar Media Database that is available, which tracks monthly spend on offline advertising channels. And then they have local level channels as well as national level channels in which they have run a lot of ads. These ads are display ads, offline ads, search ads. So these are the independent variables used in the model. And like I said, this is a two-stage model. So first is they model whether a customer is likely to visit a particular website. Okay. And then if he visits that website, then how likely is he to make the purchase in that website? So that is the second model. So this is what we call as a two-stage model. This is also called as the stacking model. Right? So the output of one model or one machine learning algorithm is fed into another machine learning algorithm or model. So that is what we call as a two-stage model. They also do something called as a marginal impact analysis. If a customer has collected more information about a particular company, how does this affect the probability of a site visit? This is kind of self-explanatory, because the more information you collect about a particular company, you're able to make a better judgment call on whether that company's website is actually worth visiting, right? So what they do here is whether or not a customer has collected more information about a particular company. So here we see something called as a website specific experience, right? Whether a customer has visited, what's the number of pages he browsed, what is the amount of money spent, and so on, right? So using all these variables, they model whether so if a customer has visited a website and if he has not visited that website, how does this affect the probability of the site visit? So this is what they call as the marginal impact analysis. And then the final part of the model is the attribution analysis, where we evaluate the impact of a specific channel on the customer's conversion rate by calculating the difference in purchase probability by including and excluding the channel from the model. So for example, assume that there is this Facebook ad campaign that you have run. Okay. So with the Facebook ad campaign, by running the Facebook ad campaign, you might have received some X rupees in revenue. Okay. And without running the Facebook ad campaign, imagine that you received Y rupees in revenue. So what is the difference between this X and Y? So that difference is the revenue attributed to the Facebook ad campaign. So this is how you actually perform that step of attribution. So for each of the campaigns that you have run, you measure the revenue with that campaign and you measure the revenue without that campaign. You calculate the difference, and that difference is attributed as the revenue, or the or you say that the particular campaign has been responsible for that portion of the revenue. Like this, you do this evaluation for all campaigns, with and without, you calculate this difference in revenue. And those campaigns, or if there is one particular campaign which is responsible for most of the revenue, then that is your most profitable or the most effective campaign. Okay. So this is the main part of attribution analysis. Apart from this, people also do visual analysis or descriptive analysis with how has the campaign performance trended over time, whether it is as effective as it was when it was first launched, and so on. And what is the customer's conversion rate when we started the campaign, whether it has increased or decreased over time, and so on. So these are all certain supplementary analysis that people perform. So this is what I had on the first approach for the multi-touch attribution modeling. Any questions here before we go to the next one? let me move on to the next approach. So the next approach is basically Markov chain model for multi-touch attribution. Again, I have listed the references here. This is a probabilistic model. So Markov chains, as some of you might be possibly familiar, it is nothing but a mathematical model which predicts the probability of transitioning from one state to another. Okay, so imagine that I'm at point A today, right now. Okay, and what is the probability that I move to point B during the next instant of time? So that is what we call as the probabilistic model of the Markov chain. So in this model, the customer journey is represented as a chain in a directed Markov graph. So the same example which I was just talking about, right? Moving from point A to point B. So that is what here they call it as a customer journey, where the customer goes from one website to another, or he goes from one page in a website to a different page in that same website. And each vertex of the chain is the channel or touch point. So first he clicks on a Google ad, and then today he clicks on a Google ad, okay, and then he doesn't come to the website. But tomorrow, let's say he sees the same ad on Facebook, and then he visits the customer's website. Okay? So the Google ad is one touch point, the Facebook ad is the second touch point. And let's say if you're integrating offline data as well, then the conversation with the sales representative could possibly be considered as the third touch point. So like this, each vertex of the chain is a channel or touch point. And the edges represent the probability of transition between the touch points. So just to give you a pictorial representation of the model. So let's say each of the C is a particular ad channel, right? So C1 might be Facebook, C2 might be Google, C3 might be an offline interaction or whatever. Right? So the probability of going from C1 to C2, that is a probability of going from a Facebook ad to a Google ad, would be 50%. Probability of going from C2 to C3, so that is from Google ad to talking to a sales representative, is 100%. So like this particular model models the probability of transitioning or probability of going from one stage of the sales cycle to another, and finally it estimates the probability of conversion. So here, just like we talked about that marginal impact analysis in the previous approach, here they have something called as the removal effect. So this is also similar to the attribution approach that we discussed earlier, where we say if you remove a channel from the graph, what is the revised number of conversions that you obtain? So rather than making calculating the difference in revenue, they calculate the difference in the number of conversions that they obtain. So same example, let's say with the Google campaign, you get 100 conversions. Without the Google campaign, you get 50 conversions. So the difference of 50, right, is attributed to the Google ad campaign. So that is what you call as the removal effect. And then there are certain indexes that they assign to each channel, and then they apply some weightage on these indexes. They multiply them with total number of conversions and so on to accurately estimate how well or how effectively each advertising channel contributes to the conversions. So this is what the second approach is all about. So before I move to the third approach, any questions here on this one? Okay, let me go to the next approach. So the third approach is nothing but a multi-channel attribution model based on gradient boosting over trees. Okay, so for those of you who may not be familiar, gradient boosting is one of the most popular data science techniques available today. You can call it as a more advanced version of the random forest model. So typically, you have two types of data science techniques. So one is called as a bagging approach, and the other is called as a boosting approach. Now, gradient boosting is of the second type, the boosting type. So boosting models, typically what they do is they learn from the misclassifications or the wrong predictions that they have made with the data, and they make corrections on the fly. So that is what the boosting approach is all about. So it is called boosting because this making correction on the fly is something which you don't have to fine tune the model in each and every step. You run the iterations, you do the cross validation, the model automatically fine tunes by itself. It boosts its predicting power by itself. So that is why these techniques are called as gradient boosting techniques. boosting techniques, and extreme gradient boosting is one of the most popular techniques. In fact, most of the Kaggle competitions today, if you look at the winning entries, they would have probably used this particular technique that you see over here. One advantage of this gradient boosting techniques is that it performs well with unbalanced data. For example, when the conversions are only, let's say, half percent to 2%, the data set is heavily unbalanced, right? So typically what you do when you come across unbalanced data, you do some oversampling or undersampling, and you ensure that you get that 50-50 or 60-40 split of the conversions or fraud or whatever, and then you apply your machine learning model after balancing the data, right? But the disadvantage of doing that is you lose out on information, you lose out on patterns that are inherent in the data, and thereby that could negatively impact the accuracy of your model. So that is where you go for this sort of a technique which performs well with unbalanced data. And here what they do is they construct a classification model to predict the converted and non-converted customers. It's a very simple, straightforward approach when you compare with the previous two approaches that we analyzed. So one thing that I forgot to mention in the second approach is that there is an R package that is readily available for this Markov chain modeling. In fact, the second link that I have here, so if you see, this particular link has coding and has other details on how to do this Markov chain model for multi-touch attribution in R. And there is an R package that is readily available, which you can download and install, which has all the necessary functions for you to build this model here. So that is what I had on the third approach. Any questions before we move to the next one? Okay, sorry, I missed the variables. So gradient boosting, like any other typical data science technique, has a set of independent variables or the predictor variables, and the variables that they used are interaction of customers with the advertising message. So what sort of ads did he click on, what time did he click, how many times did he click, and so on, right? Which side the interaction took place, what was the type of the advertisement, whether it was a video ad or a banner ad, what was the actual display or click or conversion, and location of ad on the site, the timestamp, the geographical details of the customer, and then the platform. So whether he is browsing from a web browser or whether he's on iOS or an Android device. So these are certain independent variables which they have considered while building this XGBoost model. Any questions here on this third approach? Okay, let me move to the next one. So the fourth approach, I would say, is the most advanced approach of all the approaches that we have seen until now. So this approach has something called as a game theory model. So typically, if you see, game theory is like, to put it in a nutshell, it's like you make a certain move, right? What move could your opponent possibly make? It's like chess. Okay, so that is what, at its core, that's what game theory is all about. Okay? And there are several types of game theoretic models. So the most popular being a zero-sum game. Okay, but let's not go into all those things right now. But this particular game theoretic model that this approach uses is based on cooperative TU games. So TU stands for transferable utility and bankruptcy problems. So based on these two concepts of TU games and bankruptcy problems, they have two game theoretic models. Okay, so what it basically does is it allows the decision maker to select a specific attribution rule based on list of properties that we consider relevant to a problem. So this is a rule-based model. So in your typical machine learning algorithm like an XGBoost, what you do is you understand patterns from the data, and the model gives a prediction based on a set of input variables, right? So here we form a set of rules or attribution rules, to be more precise. So that is what the game theory approach is all about. And we use these proposed rules to stimulate channels to improve their efficiency incentives. So what we actually do, let's say at the end of this game theory exercise, you get a set of rules, right? You tweak those rules, you tweak the parameters involved in making those rules, and then analyze the impact of those changes on your different advertising channels. Okay, so this also helps you perform sort of a what if analysis and determine, okay, if this channel is at a is configured differently tomorrow, then what could be the benefit that I possibly get out of it. So the advantage of using the fourth approach is that it allows you to perform this kind of a what if analysis or a scenario analysis, if you will, which will help you determine which could possibly be an efficient channel for you tomorrow. So not only does it tell you what is good today or which channel works for you today, but you can also use it to determine what sort of proactive steps you can take in the future. So that is the basic overview of the fourth approach that we have here. And then, like I said, it uses two types of models. So one is a sum game and then a bankruptcy problems. So this is more on the technical side. The sum game uses something called as a Shapley value model, and then the second model uses something called as a constrained equal loss and proportional rules. So in each model, they consider three cases. So one is neither order nor repetition. So order and repetition are nothing but the order in which the customer visits the different websites. Repetition is nothing but whether the customer visits the same website more than once. So when we say neither order nor repetition, it is nothing but we make an assumption that the sequence in which the customer visits the multiple websites does not have an impact on the conversion. Okay. No repetition means whether the customer visits the same website multiple times does not have an impact on the conversion. So that is the first case. Repetition only is nothing but so if the customer visits the same website multiple times, then that has an impact on the conversion, but the sequence of visiting does not matter. The order only scenario, the third scenario, is the opposite of the second one, where we say the sequence in which the customer visits the website matters, but it does not matter whether he visited the same website multiple times. So for each model, that is for each of these two models, they consider these three cases, and then they build the game theory model. So that is what I had for today on B2B attribution modeling.